everyone. Thank you for coming. For those of you who actually read your newsletters and your emails and everything else we inundate you with, you may have noticed our title changed for this presentation. Our first presenter was also on birds, and unfortunately had a family situation come up. So we had enough warning, and we were very fortunate to be able to find John to present for us. And actually, I was reminding John, in my career at Leighton School, he used to come and do build the bird boxes with the students. So I have a few of his products at home. So I should say my products from it. So nice memories. But welcome. And John will tell you all about his organization that he started. And we can talk about bluebirds and other topics that go along. He's got a wonderful presentation here for you. And he's worked hard to make sure that everything's nicely on screens here. If you're not a member of Rice Creek, information is over there. Please sign in just so we know how many people attended. And the sun is out and all is good. And welcome. And
well, thank you.
There you go.
How many people here have had bluebird boxes and have had nesting bluebirds? Got a few. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. We'll have these folks have a seat, and then I'll get started, okay? Hi.
Just a quick question. Is it true that there are many more bluebirds? They sure seem to be more prevalent.
It is true. It is true. If you look at the long-term averages, some years there's ups and downs. But by and large, if you compare with 30 years ago, it's escalated extremely well.
That's right.
Yes. But there are years, and there's down years due to weather. To set the tone for my program, I begin with a traditional American melody. So I'm going to be talking about the Eastern Bluebird and some other birds that you might find in a bluebird nest box. But I'm also going to expand the scope of my program just a bit. I always hope that someone takes in some broader and deeper messages about nature and maybe a little bit about life. You know, thank you for that introduction, Laura. I'm just a humble amateur. I don't have any PhD. I've never written a book, but I've had a love for bluebirds since I was about that high. And like many of you here, I appreciate nature. And I'm going to share with you something of what's in my mind and what's really and truly from my heart. When I was about 10 or 12, my dad helped me make a bluebird box. We put that box up, and within a matter of days, a pair of bluebirds moved in. When I was about 15, I started making bluebird boxes from scrap lumber. But it all started because my dad helped me along. When I went to college right here at Oswego, college vacations in the spring, I back making bluebird boxes. And after graduation, I started putting trails of boxes up over many miles of country roads. But you know, when I'm out checking my boxes, I'm not just looking for bluebirds. I'm taking in everything I can see in nature. And I'm listening to the birds. I'm looking for creatures big and small. There's one message I'd like to leave with this group today. It is this one right here. I always hope that somebody takes something of meaning from my programs. The upper left, American mink. I take walks almost every day. unless it's really a rainstorm or something. And during the winter, I walk along the Erie Canal near Canastota and Oneida. About every few weeks, this winter and last, I saw an American link across the canal from me. They are awesome creatures. They feed on anything that moves. They're very hard. They're very vicious predators, but they're amazing creatures. Lower right, one of my favorite birds, piping plover, in serious decline. Last year, on all of the Great Lakes, there were 88 nesting pairs of piping plovers left. That's it. Very, they nest along sandy beaches, and human activities disrupt the nesting behaviors. I've seen several pairs up in Lake Superior. My wife and I went to Cape Cod. I had to walk 4 miles to see 2 pairs, but we saw them and it made my day. I do this program, like Laura said, for children sometimes. And when I do it for children, I tell them this: find wonder in nature. And as the years go by, as I get older, I still find wonder in nature. And it does not have to be rare creatures like the piping plover. It can be a gray squirrel in my yard. They are amazing creatures. Or I can watch an American raven or an American crow, or even turkey vultures gliding overhead. They are amazing if people just take the time to observe them and to learn about them. Ruby-throated hummingbirds, we all know those. They are too amazing. In the fall, they start migrating south. Some of them fly over the Gulf of Mexico, over 500 miles of open water, and they weigh just over 1/10 of an ounce. One of my other favorite birds is this one. Now, it's declining substantially in New York State. It's not a hawk. It's not related to hawk in any way. It's a nightjar. It's related to whippoorwills. And they are incredible creatures. They migrate almost as far as any other bird in North America. They go all the way to mid-central or South America and parts of southern South America. Incredible during their migration. But if you ever watch them, they have a distinctive flight pattern with these white patches on the wings. Amazing to watch. Here's what you should do if you haven't done it. During the migration of fall, find a hill with good visibility, late August, early September, an hour and a half before dark, and look for common nighthawks migrating. I do it every year. I find a few every year that makes my summer. Late summer migration. We all have ups and downs in our lives. Telling you, in those times in my life when I've been alone, and there's been many, those times in my life when I've had losses, and there have been many, all I do is to take a walk out in nature. And these words of John Burroughs have special meaning for me. I go to nature to be soothed and healed, and to have my senses put in order. By the way, my wife took that photo. We were at the Big Sur coast of California. We were looking for California condors that day. We saw 2. I didn't expect it. We saw 2 overhead, and I cried like a baby when I saw those 2 condors. 1987, there were 27 left in the world. Today, there are just over 600. 2/3 of those are in the wild. 10-foot wingspan. You know the wingspan of a bald eagle? About 7 foot. Much bigger than a bald eagle. And so wonderful. Just amazing creatures. It's always hard speaking after lunchtime, mid-afternoon, because people start dozing on you. They go off. My wife taught school. She said, John, give them a quiz. They'll wake up in a hurry. Few quiz questions. What's the estimated number of bluebirds in New York State? 170,000.
Too bad they can't vote.
Which state has which has the most Eastern bluebirds? Which state? Anybody want to venture a guess?
Maryland?
Maryland? No? Good guess? No? Everything's bigger in Texas. These are all states with great expanses of good bluebird habitat and mild winters. What's the average lifespan of an Eastern bluebird? The average. Anybody think it's A? Polio, anybody think it's A? How about B?
B.
How about C? C? The answer is A. Dr. Pitt studied banding records for over 10 years. He's a well-recognized authority on Eastern bluebirds, and this is what he came up with. And another interesting conclusion is this: less than 10% live more than 3 years. Less than 10%. Now, a few do. Some live 4, 5, and 6 years, but mortality is high. Which state has the most tree swallows?
Texas.
I'll tell you this, no one has ever gotten this right.
Tennessee.
The answer is Alaska. You don't think of our tree swallows getting to Alaska. It's amazing. Yeah. New York State, by the way, 380,000. We've got a lot of tree swallows here. They're in decline though. And this is 2 years old of data, so it may not be quite that high now. Are there more tree swallows or bluebirds in North America? The answer is there are more Eastern bluebirds. Part of the reason for this is that there are large populations of Eastern bluebirds that nest down into Mexico and Central America. There are no tree swallows that nest that far south. So Eastern bluebirds have a larger range. This is the official state bird of which 2 states?
New York.
I heard New York. New York and Missouri. The Eastern bluebird, the scientific name is Cialia cialis. Who cannot get excited to see a bluebird like this in bright sunshine? I've been doing this for 60 plus years. I'm still excited to see those early bluebirds arrive in late February into March. We often perch where blossoms are because sometimes they'll pluck insects that are feeding on the nectar of the blossoms. The adult males are all blue on the back. The adults only weigh about 1.1 ounces, about 31 grams. The Pilgrims in the 1620s came to New England. They saw bluebirds. They called them blue robins. It reminded the Pilgrims of the robins from Europe called the European robin. We know now that our bluebirds are related to the American robin. Both are in the thrush family. Now, if you look closely, you can see the structural resemblance. Robins, though, weigh over 2.5 times as much as the smaller bluebird. Henry David Thoreau in the mid-1800s wrote about bluebirds in his journals. And back in Thoreau's day, where the forest had been cleared, bluebirds were quite common. All of the farms had large rotting fence posts where bluebirds would nest in. And also back then, there were not starlings or house sparrows. And there weren't pesticides either. Female here is not quite as bright. They term this protective coloration, but still very beautiful birds. The pair together with a great poem by Rachel Carson. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. By the way, I've got a sheet on the table at the end with the quotes in my program if anybody wanted them. I know sometimes people take notes on it. Two other beautiful bluebirds. One of these nests high up in the forest canopy. The other nests low to the ground. The one that nests low to the ground is this one. Indigo buntings, they're wonderful birds. They nest 3 feet or less from the ground. They have pure white eggs. When I'm out checking my bluebird boxes, I will find a number of these every day. They're more common than most people think in the right habitats. Listen to their song one more time. We hear more than we see. Everything seems to double. And the other bird that nests high in the canopy is this one. In substantial decline in most areas of their range, but we still have pockets of cerulean warblers here in Oswego County. And, they're tiny birds. They're smaller than a hummingbird by weight, but they have that beautiful song and their beautiful color. To see them in the wild, though, you've got to stretch your neck because they're often quite high in the forest. I put the famous mad bluebird photo of Michael Smith in for a reason. Bluebirds have a right to be mad at humans. And at the right is a concise listing some of the factors behind the decline of bluebirds, especially several decades ago, all brought about by human activity. Bluebirds, of course, are cavity nesting birds. They only nest naturally in cavities or holes in trees. Often they'll seek out old woodpecker holes to nest in. Woodpeckers are the primary excavators of the bird world. They excavate cavities in dead and dying trees, and they often only use them once, so that the following years, the secondary cavity nesters, like bluebirds, get to move in. I should also say that woodpeckers are keystone species. Many other species of wildlife depend upon woodpeckers in an ecosystem. Not only do other birds use those cavities, but insects and mammals and reptiles and insects. Very important. Woodpeckers are very important, and they are a keystone species. Keep in mind, when we put up a bluebird box, the bluebirds by instinct think our box is a dark hole, a cavity in a tree. Bluebirds are attracted to dark holes 12 months a year. It's just by instinct. And I should also say that natural cavities, there's 85 species of birds in North America that nest in these cavities, and many of those are in trouble. One, though, that is not in trouble is the next. How many people this year have seen a pileated woodpecker? Sure, they're all over the place. Northeastern woodlands are coming back because the farmland's been abandoned over many decades. We get more pileated woodpeckers. By the way, the pronunciation can also be pileated. Either one is correct. I put the photo of a northern flicker on the ground for a reason. More than any other bird in North America, flickers eat ants. very commonly on the ground. I should also say that bluebirds use quite a number of abandoned flicker holes. Flickers tend to nest along the edges of woods, in parks, and in more open areas. Bluebirds also, on occasion, will use old downy woodpecker holes to nest in. European starlings were brought in from Europe in the 1890s. You see that hole there, natural cavity? If a bluebird starts nesting there, it's very likely that a starling is going to take it over. It's been repeated countless times over the years. A major reason why bluebirds declined. However, when we make our nest box, we make the box with a hole of 1 1/2 or 1 9/16 inches. That will keep starlings out. That's an important part of a bluebird box. Now, there are other bluebird box hole dimensions that people use, and I've used many of them. Over the years, I've decided that I'm going to stick with a tried and true 1 1/2, 1 9/16 inch hole, because I know it will keep starlings out. My trail of boxes is just north of Oneida Lake, mainly. We live in Madison County, so I've got boxes now, a few in Madison and Oneida counties. And over the years, I've just gone around the backcountry roads looking for good bluebird habitat, knocking on people's doors and asking for permission to use my boxes on their land. The key to the whole thing, folks, is not the box itself, it's the habitat. For bluebirds, they seek out naturally 2 components of habitat: short or sparse vegetation, like a mowed lawn. They feed quite a bit on the ground. They need to be able to capture their prey on the ground. They also need a scattering of perches, trees, fence posts, utility wires, something to perch upon. A large lawn like this is ideal, especially if it's in a rural area. You see the trees in the back? We try to not put our boxes too close to the woods if we can. More out in the open. A large lawn like this, again, ideal. There's some trees in the back. The birds can use that for territory defense and for foraging. Absolutely perfect habitat right here. I put the box up, and within a matter of days, we had bluebirds nesting. An abandoned gravel pit. I put this in to show you, see how short the vegetation is. Picture a spider running across that land. It's very energy efficient to capture their prey. You wouldn't put a bluebird box in a goldenrod field. Bluebirds just cannot find their prey in that situation. Cemeteries are ideal. The grass is short and plenty of perches for the birds to stand on while they're feeding and defending territory.
Excuse me, are the baffles for squirrels?
I'm going to mention baffles in a
Okay,
minute.
sorry.
Yep,
Sorry.
but it's a good question. Yeah, they are for squirrels and for other predators. 3 or 4 years ago, I had 5 successful pairs of bluebirds at one time nesting in this one cemetery. It's a great place for bluebird boxes. I often find this when I'm making my rounds monitoring the boxes. And people come up to me, and say, "Mom, my grandfather loved bluebirds." It makes me feel good. But also, I put this in for a reason, too. Bluebirds are territorial. That male bluebird will drive off any other bluebird that comes into his territory. Males go after males. Females go after females. The closest that bluebirds will nest from others is 100 yards. More of the time, it's 125 to 150 yards. The only exception to that is if there's a visual obstruction between boxes, like a house. You can get by closer than 100 yards if the male bluebird does not visibly see another male.
Excuse me, but in that prior picture, it seemed like the boxes were much closer.
Yeah, that's for tree swallow competition, and I'm gonna get into tree swallow. We put the pairing of the boxes for tree swallow. It's a good question, sir. Thank you for bringing it up. I'm gonna mention that in a minute, okay? The next slide is taken. Two male bluebirds aggressively fighting to defend territory. And this is something I see all the time. Females go after other females, and females will kill other female bluebirds. It's the reality. So 100 to 150 yards between boxes. Now I'd like to go through the nesting season. Most of our bluebirds go south for the winter. Some do stay. I volunteer for Christmas bird counts, and we do the one in Oneida, Canastota on January 1st. In the last 10 years, we've had 2 years, we had over 100 bluebirds on January 1st, New Year's Day. So we know that some, stay around for the winter. Sometimes we find dead bluebirds in our boxes in the spring. It's a good idea to keep your boxes up all winter, though, because they can provide shelter for them. I love this photograph. It's a reminder to me that all living creatures face struggles in life, but also all living creatures experience the joy of life in their own way, and I believe that. When I'm out birding, just taking a nature walk, I'm not only looking for pretty birds, I'm imagining their lives in some way, and I'm observing them experiencing that joy in their own way. Just look at gray squirrels in your backyard to realize how the joy that they feel. There are countless examples of that. One of my favorite examples is the next one right now. I love wood thrushes. They're returning right now. I take walks before dark to listen to them. And by the way, wood thrushes are part of the thrush family. Almost all of them have blue eggs, like a robin and bluebird. The next slide is interesting. It's taken inside a bluebird box at night during a spring snowstorm. These are adult birds roosting together for survival during a snowstorm, a late winter snowstorm. So it's a good idea. Keep the boxes up in the wintertime. Occasionally they will communally roost like you're seeing here. And right at dawn, they leave the box. One of my simple pleasures in life is to get out in the spring right now, take a walk in the woods, looking for some of our early spring wildflowers. It's a simple pleasure of mine in life. Bloodroot is one of our earliest. Hepaticus, my favorite spring wildflower. It blooms in many different colors and shades. Trout lily, the leaves look like a trout in a stream. A trillium with 3 leaves and 3 petals. My favorite is the painted. Dutchman's breeches and squirrel corn. Spring beauty. I know when spring beauties are blooming in upstate New York that bluebirds are beginning to nest. And spring beauties are blooming right now. Do you have many of these on the site? Do you know?
Sure.
Yeah, I bet you most of these that could be found right here along the trails.
There's a lot out at Sterling Nature Center.
Are there? Yes, okay. About half the time, males come back first. The other half of the time, the pair is already together when they return. But for unpaired males, they seek out a nesting site, a good territory, and they begin singing to attract a mate. And the male bluebird will sing hundreds and in fact thousands of times a day early in the season. They engage in many different wing waving displays. They turn this advertisement display to attract a mate and to keep a mate. The male here is not building the nest. The male is simply displaying for the female, trying to get the female to check out that nest box. And the reason he does that is this. It's the female who's in charge, if you will, in quotes, where she's going to build her nest. She's the one that, in quotes, makes the decision. You think about it, the female's on the nest a lot. It's her life at risk. So she's in charge. Okay? We know from, you can see a band on her leg, and we know from banding that adults that nested successfully last year often will return, sometimes to the same box or to an adjacent box the following year. We know that. I've banded many bluebirds in my day. The young, though, disperse to a much wider area. Only about 5% of the young return to the natal territory. But you got to realize, too, of course, as I mentioned earlier, bluebirds don't live that long. Dr. Pitts had another finding. He said that the majority of bluebirds only live long enough for one nesting season. That's consistent with the longevity of 1.4 years on average. If you're fortunate to have bluebirds in your yard, you get to see this. Throughout the season, the male will feed the female. And for the female, it's an additional source of calcium and nutrients. First nestings happen here in April and May. We get our boxes cleaned out in March. Only the female builds the nest. She brings in fine grasses in the morning. The male defends that territory. I've seen him aggressively attack other birds and red squirrels that came in the territory. Occasionally, the male will bring a piece of grass in, but not very often. We make our boxes to open up. Mine open from the front. Any way to open is fine, as long as people can get access to the box. Let's take a look in this box right here. Female is laying her eggs. She lays just one egg a day, then she leaves. The next day she returns to lay another. She does not start incubating until the clutch of eggs is completed, or at least almost completed. That way, all of the eggs hatch on the same day, or within 1 day of each other. Beautiful blue eggs. If you're near pine woods, they will make a nest with pine needles. I get excited because I get 6 eggs once in a while. It's not too common. The most common numbers of eggs in a bluebird's clutch is 4 or 5. But we get some with 6, and I'm always pleased to see that. A small percentage of the time, bluebird's eggs are pure white. The birds come out normal, and any female bluebird that lays white eggs will always lay white eggs. It's in her DNA. It has nothing to do with a male that she mates with. 3 years ago or 4, I found this in one of my boxes. These are bluebird's eggs, and I was struck by how symmetrical those eggs laid in the nest. And all 6 hatched, and all 6 fledged. just kind of an interesting, display of eggs. She incubates for about 2 weeks. The female has a brood patch underneath her abdomen with no feathers. She puts that on the eggs. She leaves quite a bit of the time, though, to feed for herself. If all goes well, in 2 weeks, the eggs should hatch. The young are altricial. They're blind and helpless at birth. They don't even regulate their temperature for 5 days or more. Both of the adults take out the eggshells, and on occasion they will eat the eggshells. For the female, it's an additional source of calcium. Look at the size of the eyeballs. As I said, they don't open their eyes for 5 days or more. At first, tiny caterpillars and spiders are brought to the nest. The female here is brooding her young. The young do not regulate their temperature for a while, so the female has to keep them warm. I put this photo in for a reason. We don't need a perch on a bluebird box. It's too easy for predators to get inside, to hang on. And house sparrows love perches, so they don't need this. What some people do, and this is okay, you can scratch off roughness beneath the hole on the outside. Gaping for food with an unhatched egg. When I'm checking my boxes, if I find an unhatched egg, I'll take it out and bury it so that the smell does not attract a predator. Some people feed bluebirds mealworms. These are beetle larvae that you can buy at pet stores. And during severe weather times, it will help bluebirds survive. It's a good thing. All I can say is during this time of year, they don't need supplemental feeding. Because I have a concern that feeding them mealworms throughout the year creates problems with predators. And I've seen sharp-shinned hawks and Cooper's hawks attack bluebirds that were at a feeder. So during the wintertime it's fine, but not during the summertime. But I got to tell you this, folks, bluebirds really love mealworms. They love them.
Do they overeat?
I don't think so. But, it's like feeding a child the same, popcorn all day. Not recommended. As the young get older, the adults tend to feed them from not going inside the box so much. Sometimes we start with 4 or 5 nestlings and they don't all make it. The adults are capable of removing them, but often they do not. So when I'm checking the boxes, I put a plastic glove on, I take them out and I bury any dead ones. Very important for people who put boxes up to monitor them. I speak to garden clubs and I tell them this: you wouldn't plant a garden and leave it till fall without checking it. Same thing with a bluebird box. A lot can go wrong.
Is that a nest on a nest?
That is that's a brand new Eastern Bluebird nest.
It goes that big on one go.
Highly variable. Sometimes they're shallow, sometimes they're very deep. It varies substantially. Yeah. Let's see, where was I here? Oh, you're monitoring the bio. A lot can go wrong. You can get house sparrows in there. You find dead birds, unhatched eggs, wasp nests, on and on. We check our boxes every 7 to 10 days if possible. You got to be quiet. You got to be quick. You use common sense. You don't check it when it's very cold out in the morning. You wait till the sun warms the air. And just quiet and quick. If I ever find an adult bird in the box, I immediately close it up and leave. We got to think about one thing when it comes to monitoring. The birds are bonded to their young, to their nest, just like a human being. There's that bonding. They will not abandon. And quick question?
If they encounter you checking a box, are they aggressive or they just kind of hang back?
It varies. Bluebirds, just like people, highly variable. I've had a number of bluebirds come right down and swoop at me like a tree swallow will do. And I have many that are docile. They just go up to the utility wire, watch me, and as soon as I leave, they return to the box. Different levels of timidity, and sometimes they're very aggressive. We monitor our boxes until the young get to be about 13 days of age. At that point, the birds are fully feathered and are capable of beginning early flight. We don't want to disrupt the nestlings at that point. I still do occasionally, but we need to be very careful. Day 13. They leave the nest, that's called fledging, between the 16th and 21st day, usually around 18 or 19 days. And once the babies leave, they never return to the box. They go out in trees, and the adults continue feeding them in trees for 3 to 5 weeks before they're fully independent. And if you've got them in your yard, you get to see all of this. They tend to go to the wooded areas after they fledge for protection. Later in the spring, around Memorial Day, my favorite wild orchids bloom. The pink lady slippers bloom then, and a week or two later, in early June, the showy lady slippers bloom. My wife and I, in fact, every Father's Day, we go up to the Remsen Bog to see these beautiful wild orchids blooming naturally. And it's a great experience. But I know when these are blooming, that bluebirds have completed their first nestings and are in the process of nesting a second time. They almost always make 2 nesting attempts a year, sometimes 3, not many, but very commonly 2 nestings a year. So as soon as the babies leave the first brood, I reach in and take out the old nest. And the female often, not always, will build a new nest in the same box. If you don't take out that first nest, what happens is the second nest, if it's in there, will be high up near the entrance hole, exposing the birds to predators and to even birds like starlings from reaching in. And second nestings in the summertime generally have 1 egg less than the first. Common to have 5 in the first, 4 in the second. Well, sometimes we'll have 4 in the first and 3 in the second. Later in the summer, in August, my favorite summer wildflower blooms. The most vibrant red in all of nature. That's what I tell people. It grows in wet, marshy areas. I know when these are blooming that bluebirds are ending their nestings for the year and are in the process of molting. The adults lose all of their feathers over about a 6 to 8 week time frame to prepare them for the migration south. Anyone who loves anything in nature simply and sincerely will find a measure of joy in life. I believe that. By the way, Edwin Teal was a great nature writer. I read some of his every night before I go to sleep. When the asters are blooming in September, when the goldenrods are blooming, I know the bluebirds are beginning to migrate south. They migrate in small groups. Some of them go all the way to the southeastern U.S., some only a short distance. That's why they call them partial migrants. Some migrate, some do not. When they're migrating, they sing a location call. They sing this all year, but I like to hear it during the month of October when they're migrating. Listen to their location call. Bluebirds feed in many ways. Most importantly, though, they stand on an elevated perch. They drop to the ground and capture prey in their beaks, never with their feet. All kinds of insects and spiders are taken, some as large as a dragonfly. When insects aren't available, they'll feed on fruits and berries. We encourage people to plant shrubs, native shrubs, that keep their berries on into the fall and winter. Red cedar here, that's a good example of one. Crab apples, you can buy native crab apple. But the best food for bluebirds in the winter is this one right here. The native staghorn sumac. It's not a preferred food, it's a survival food. When there's nothing else available, this will sustain bluebirds in the winter. Believe me, when I'm out taking drives around in the wintertime in Oswego County, if I see bluebirds, very often I know that staghorn sumac will be nearby. Okay, it's a survival food, not only for bluebirds, but for many other species. There's a few other birds we'll find in our nest boxes. One is this one, the problem bird, the house sparrow, brought in from Europe in the 1850s. You see, this is the male with a black bib, if you will, pointed beak, and it's a killer. Invasive species not protected by law. They build a very bulky nest. They have speckled eggs, and if you allow them to multiply, they will make 3 and sometimes 4 nestings in a season. Don't let them nest in your boxes. They truly are invasive. This is an example of what happens. These are the native birds that were killed by house sparrows. I see this time and time again. The sparrows go after the heads of the other birds. So we don't let them nest at the very least. Now, there's an experimental approach that people are taking, including myself now, and it's working pretty well, not perfect. The skylight. We simply drill a 3-inch hole in the top of the box, and we put this polycarbonate on top. I've got a sample of what we use here. It's what they make greenhouses out of, and it's air flows through it so it doesn't get too hot like other mediums would do. House sparrows don't like the light. They stay away. Bluebirds don't like it much either, but they adapt. It's really working fairly successfully. Not 100%, but it's a great improvement. I think of this box in a cemetery. For 3 years, I had nothing but house sparrows. So I went in there, I put a skylight roof on, and I've had bluebirds for 3 straight years. Not a house sparrow bothered them. It's worth a try. You can find it on the internet. Great source of information is this website right here, cialis.org. Great resource. Goes into a lot more detail on house sparrows than I have time for today. I truly love tree swallows. Over the years, I've probably raised as many as anybody in New York State, or pretty close to it. And I truly love these beautiful birds that are declining now. They're aerial insectivores, and there's fewer insects because of human activities. And tree swallows are declining. Love to have them in a box. The female mainly brings in some grass. She lays her eggs, and then both of the adults go out and find feathers, not their own feathers, other birds' feathers, duck feathers, a number of waterfowl species of feathers, domestic fowl, gull feathers. They bring them in, and these pure white eggs are generally camouflaged within the feathers. There's a lot of theories as to what the feathers do. It still has not been decided definitively, I don't think. But some think it minimizes parasites. Some says it's insulation. Some says it's protection from predators. It's interesting though, always feathers. Because swallows are so common, now we get into the pairing of the boxes, okay? We put our boxes up in pairs to a great extent, not always, but to a great extent. Swallows often will take over one box, will defend it against another of its own kind. because they're territorial against their own kind. So you'll get a tree swallow in one box. A second box is open and available for bluebirds. And I've got quite a number of examples. I'll get a tree swallow in one, a bluebird side by side. Having said that, these are wild birds. They don't go by our rules, and sometimes it does not work, okay? I use 6 to 12 feet apart. Tree swallows, unlike bluebirds, only nest once a year generally. So later in June and July, you've had more boxes open for bluebirds. Tree swallows, because they're aerial insectivores, have evolved smaller feet. Because of that, we have to provide a ladder inside the nest box so that tree swallows can exit. Most can get out all right, but there are a few that just can't get out of the box. Many people just rough up the inside with horizontal grooves. That's the easiest way. I'm not quite that handy, so I use this gutter guard that I buy at Home Depot. Okay, and it works. Believe me, I've used it for many, many decades. I'll tell you a story. Last year, I was checking boxes. I checked maybe 40 or 50 that day, and all of a sudden, I found a dead tree swallow in it. I opened the box up, and I realized I had forgotten to put the gutter guard inside that box, and it made me sad that I had killed a tree swallow because of that mistake. Truly love chickadees. I don't find many. A few in my boxes every year. Truly love them. What you're hearing is not their song. It's one of their many distress calls. When they sing that distress call, it means there's a blue jay around, there's a crow around, there's a fox, there's a human, and they're singing, come here, other chickadees, we've got a problem. It's a distress call. When they're mating, when they're courting, chickadees sing their true song. I'm sure you've heard that. Mm-hmm. It's most prevalent from February to June, but they sing it all year. Chickadees, it's interesting, they always bring green moss into the nest. Sometimes I wonder where they find it, but every chickadee nest I've ever found has green moss in. For that photograph, rabbit fur had to be removed that covered all of the eggs. Those eggs are smaller than the size of the end of your baby finger. They are tiny. Chickadees often will excavate their own cavities too, like a woodpecker. They have to find rotting wood to do that. Love to have the black-capped chickadees. Sometimes when chickadees start nesting in our nest box, bluebirds will drive them out, or tree swallows or house sparrows. And I've seen that many times because, chickadees are so small. My wife taught at Oneida High School for several years. They wouldn't let us put a box on a post. So we hung it on the tree, and we made a chickadee box with 1 1/8 hole. That's the key if you've got an area with lots of house sparrows, an area with not good bluebird habitat, you still could get a chickadee nesting. Make the entrance hole 1 1/8. That will keep house sparrows out and the other birds out except for house wrens. And the key to getting more chickadees is to put wood shavings in the box. Because remember, chickadees excavate their own cavities on occasion. They'll have that sensation of removing something from a snag. Do not put sawdust in a box, you must put wood shavings in, okay? And I put this one in two for a reason. Don't put a bird box or a bird feeder on the trunk of a tree. It exposes them to predation. A native bird is this one. Very aggressive. The male wren brings in sticks into the nest. He will bring in many sticks for many bird boxes to keep the other birds away. Some of those only have sticks in. They're called dummy nests. It's legal to remove the sticks of a dummy nest. But once the female builds her grass nest on top of the sticks, it's illegal to touch it, and I abide by the law. These are bluebirds' eggs that were destroyed by house wrens. House wrens are very aggressive. The only thing we really can do is to move the boxes to more open areas. House wrens like a lot of brush, like a lot of trees around. We need our boxes more in the open to have fewer house wrens. On top of those sticks, the female has her nest protected by law, and we let them be. Sometimes we get predators around our boxes. Raccoons, they'll take the babies, the eggs, and the adults. Cats can be a problem. Flying squirrels are common in upstate New York woodlands. They're nocturnal, you don't see many of them. But they also will get into a bluebird box and take whatever's there. Red squirrels will enlarge the hole like this here. There are a few common sense steps we can take to have fewer predators. First, we make a long roof on the box. It makes it harder for a hawk or a raccoon to reach inside. That long roof keeps the box drier, and it keeps the rain from going inside. We mount our boxes on smooth metal pipe. No trees, no tree trunks. The higher the better. Cats will stay at the base of the box and jump as the birds go in and out. Higher than a cat can jump. We put our boxes in open areas away from the woods if we can. Sometimes I know people can't, they're right by the woods. They often ask me how to attach a box to the pipe. We just buy these U-clamps at the hardware store. Very simple. Attach them with wood screws. To make a nice tight fit, I use pieces of inner tube between the clamp and the pipe to make a nice tight fit. You can use duct tape too. I've got samples of what I use on the table here with the inner tubes that I use. You really need to use, if possible, predator baffles. You can buy this already cut, 2-foot lengths at the hardware store. You want 8 or 9 inches wide. I've got directions on the table how to make a stovepipe predator baffle. You can also use PVC pipe. It will keep squirrels away and it will keep mice out. It's questionable about some of the other larger creatures like raccoons. Don't tell the utility now. Don't call them on it, okay? But I do have a few boxes on utility poles, and it works beautifully. But the only thing, you have to put a baffle. I buy aluminum flashing around the pole to keep predators away. Very common are paper wasps. This is our native paper wasp. We also have an invasive that's yellowish. Not to be feared. I just carry a flattened spatula with me, and I squash the nest and drive the wasp away when I monitor it. And if you check it every week or two, you can keep ahead of this. No problem. They're really docile. I rarely have gotten stung. They're docile. I should also say The one that is not docile, though, is the next. This is the only time I ever spray anything in a bluebird box, is when I find the nest of various hornet species, including the broad-faced. You can tell when I took that photo that it's out of focus because I had to back off really fast. They started chasing me. I backed off. Okay, the only time I spray anything in a bluebird nest box. Very uncommon, nothing to be feared, very uncommon, but it does happen. I'm going to go off topic for 2 minutes here, 2.5 minutes. Will you give me that? Black-legged ticks, Lyme disease. It's a problem that people don't take seriously. There's other ticks too. There's dog ticks and Lone Star ticks, but this is the most common one we have in upstate New York. The problem is this, folks. At the right are nymphs. They're tiny. People don't see them. Even if they get on them, they can't see them. And these are what spreads much of the Lyme disease early in the season, from now into July, even into August. That photo is magnified. Those nymphs are the size of a poppy seed. That's how small they are, and people don't see them. The single most important thing people can do to protect themselves against ticks is this. Tuck your shirt into your pants, tuck your pants into your socks. That creates a barrier. Without that barrier, those ticks, they go from low to high. They're going to get on your flesh. So that's the single most important thing people can do, and I always do it. And I also try to wear light-colored clothing so I can see those nymphs, especially this time of year, okay? I also, because I'm out a lot, walk in the fields and edges of woods and such, I use permethrin-treated clothing. It's an insecticide that is embedded in the clothing. You can wash your clothes 50 to 70 times. Head to toe, that's what I'm wearing right there. And it works. It actually kills any tick that may crawl up on your clothing. When you get home, you obviously have to take a shower, check yourself. But tuck your clothing in to create that barrier. That's rule number 1. That's my 2.5-minute tick lesson.
Can I add something?
Yes?
We always take all their clothes off right by the dryer. As soon as we come in, throw them in and put the dryer on
Good
high
point.
for 30 minutes.
Okay. Did
That'll
you hear
kill
that,
any
folks?
ticks on your clothes.
Put your clothes in the dryer. Yeah, good point.
We lived in New England for a while, and
Yeah.
before Lyme was a problem here, it
Yes,
was a huge problem in Connecticut,
absolutely.
Massachusetts. And that's what everybody did, the hikers. They always put their clothes in the dryer for 30 minutes.
Yep, thank you. To get you looking ahead to summertime, I'm going to put in just a very few of my favorite butterflies for you to enjoy. You know, not many of our butterflies overwinter here as adults. This is one that does. Now, a few do, like the question mark and the Eastern comma, but this is the best known butterfly that hibernates. As soon as we get a warm day in March or April, these will be flying about. They've been out for a month now. You take a walk in the woods, you may very well see a morning crow, a sure harbinger of spring. One of my favorite butterflies is the red admiral. We think of monarchs as migratory butterflies, but this also is a migratory butterfly to a great extent. And in the next 10 days, 2 weeks, these will be migrating northward. And you may see these as you drive down the road. They will be migrating from the south. And they are strong flyers. They're very fast flyers, but very beautiful and common butterflies for us. The largest butterfly in North America is this one right here. I should say in the United States and Canada. 6.25-inch wingspan, a southern butterfly that is extending its range northward. And in the month of August, go out, you can see these if you look for them. How many people here last year or two have seen a giant swallowtail? Anybody? Get looking, they're here. You will see, you won't find a lot, but you will find a few. Look for them around in August. They have a distinctive flight pattern that's worth looking at. And of course, another simple pleasure of mine is to get out in the fall, the goldenrods, the asters, take a walk looking for migratory monarch butterflies nectaring on these flowers. They go all the way to Mexico and they never come back. In March, they head north, they start mating in surrounding states, and they die. And it's their offspring that are making their way back right now. The first ones will be here late May, first week of June. It's a simple, I just love to get out there in September and early October to see these migratory monarch butterflies. Joe Pyeweed, in September, you get out there early, they'll use these for nectar. New York State Bluebird Society was founded in 1982. We've got volunteer people all over the state. They have a meeting once a year. The society has a newsletter 4 times a year. And free literature at the end here is provided by the society. You're welcome to help yourself. And now as I come to the end of my program, I want to leave you with just a couple parting thoughts. You know, it's been said that bluebirds bring happiness. I can tell you folks, with all sincerity, they have brought a lot of that to my life over the years. I even met my wife, Sue, on a bluebird field trip. I was leaving for the local Audubon Society. I hope that sometime, somewhere, bluebirds will bring a little extra happiness to your life also. And as you leave here today and you look forward to the continued emergence of spring and the coming of summer, remember those words of 2,400 years ago. In all things of nature, there is something of the marvelous.
'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down when you're to be, and when we find ourselves in this just
Thank you very much for having me. Do we have time for questions? Go ahead.
Just a quick one about checking the boxes. When you start to see the beginnings of a nest, what are the clues for what you should take out and what you shouldn't take out?
Well, the first rule is do no harm, play it safe with anything. You know what I'm saying? If you're ever in doubt, just leave it be. Let nature take its course. That's the first rule, you know.
But like house sparrows, they
Yeah.
were really messy.
I've got a sheet called Getting Started for Bluebirds by the New York State Bluebird Society, the North American Bluebird Society. It shows examples of the various nests, the components of each nest.
Right.
That will help you along with that.
Great.
Okay?
Yeah.
Feathers often mean house sparrows or tree swallows. You can't guess. You know, if in doubt, let it be.
I see.
But pick up a sheet, okay? That'll be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Great talk.
Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you very much for an excellent program and your passion for community, for nature. I was sent as a spy for another group that likes to communicate with nature, and that's our neighborhood cats. So if cats that big a problem, because I thought it's a Darwinian issue where the cats are only going to get those bluebirds that would nest within their reach. If it wasn't for your boxes and your precautions, I'm glad you take. But if when the bluebirds just instinctively go higher up in the tree, where predators could get them. How big a problem is our neighborhood cats? Because it seems like the bird people are always attacking the cat people. You know, and I just think those cats are small, a small element, because you look at the birds themselves have civil wars.
I turn TV on at home and the controversy. So I come to these Bluebird programs trying to no controversy.
I'm sorry.
We have a study that as many as 4 billion birds a year are killed by cats. Most of them are feral cats. There's been well-documented studies. 4 billion, some are even higher, some are lower, but it's in the billions that are killed every year. Okay, so it's a real problem. Now I've had bluebirds die. If you ask wildlife rehabilitators, they will tell you they've seen a number of bluebirds brought in that were captured by cats. And our backyard bird feeder. We had a mourning dove taken a few weeks ago by a cat.
It's
a problem.
They raid the
Controversial, but
because I don't know how the cats do it, but they do raid the nest. That's the issue. Because the birds can fly away.
yeah.
They jump.
And the cat population, we humans have caused it. It's an unnatural phenomenon.
I was just gonna say, 2 whole boxes help with being able for bluebirds to escape if something does come.
Oh, really?
Probably so. But you gotta realize bluebirds feed a lot of the time on the ground, wherever the boxes are. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a problem.
I'm just saying other things like
Yeah.
Small red squirrels and stuff.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm
Pete, non-controversial questions, anybody?
wondering about feeding birds in the summer. Is it best to not feed birds in the summer?
Well, that's my opinion. They don't need it, okay? And you are, about feeding birds in general. I wouldn't feed mealworms to bluebirds. I think it's a matter of choice. I said no controversy.
Well, no, I don't. You
Some
just
people,
turned that into.
my wife is on that case now to stop feeding the birds. I want to. But we've
Well,
had,
if you want to watch them,
yeah.
it brings them into your
Right.
yard, and then
I don't think there's no harm done except you're exposing them to predation and disease.
But feed them in the winter.
Absolutely,
Make sure
yeah.
your feeders are out in the
Yeah,
winter.
and, it's a matter of opinion on that.
So how important is it for you to have really clean bird feeders?
It's
I know people that put them in the dishwasher.
no.
I do.
It's got, chlorine and Clorox and water mixed periodically. That'll kill the viruses on the feeders.
They would.
I think so, to some extent. Yeah.
What's the best material, do you think? The cleanest, the best for the birds? Feeders be made.
I don't know. We use metal feeders. We have, complete metal feeders to try to clean them periodically. Probably not enough. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yes.
You were talking about Alaska, I think, tree swallows.
Yeah.
Are there bluebirds in Alaska?
There are not Eastern Bluebirds. Eastern Bluebirds are basically east of the Mississippi with some carryover. There's even a population in Arizona, Eastern, but it would be probably Western Bluebirds, maybe mountain. I'd have to look that up. Okay. I've been to Montana, and on the same bluebird trail, I saw mountain bluebirds and Western Bluebirds in Montana, on the same same bluebird trail. So I'd have to look that one up. There are bluebirds there.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Oh, yes, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, yes. Well, nice.